Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. I just wanted to note that because of scheduling conflicts, we're unable to get Congressional Budget Committee members to join us today, but we hope to schedule that at a later date. My name is ROVIKA RAJKISHUN. I am the Deputy Director of the American Business Immigration Coalition. ABIC is a bipartisan coalition of 1,200 plus employers, CEOs, and business associations across 16 states, working towards common sense immigration solutions that offer stability to immigrants and their families while growing our national GDP, stimulating job growth, and raising the wage floor for all American workers. We are so excited that with yesterday's vote, we're one step closer to this goal. This vote, following the Senate's recent approval, queues up consideration next month of the budget reconciliation bill that should include pathways to citizens for dreamers, farm workers, TPS holders, and essential workers who continue to dedicate themselves to their work on the front lines of the COVID-19 crisis. We believe immigration provisions belong in the reconciliation bill because they impact federal spending and revenues. Legalization and citizenship would boost economic activity by $121 billion a year, and federal, state, and local tax revenues would increase by $31 billion each year. These reforms also would address acute labor shortages across sectors. Our economy has 10.1 million job openings, and allowing undocumented immigrants to further expand their economic potential would ease this labor shortage. Congress must act on these provisions quickly to bring stability to the lives of immigrants seeking legal status and to the businesses that employ them and are facing worker shortages. While we've been fighting for bipartisan solutions, reconciliation is now the best and most immediate opportunity to do so. This is why we've launched a 7-figure campaign covering more than a dozen key states where ABIC has operations. This campaign, Immigration Reform Now, will include the stories, support, and advocacy of workers, business leaders, farmers, families, and elected officials, making the case that immigration reform is urgent and bipartisan. We will present economic data showing how immigration solutions belong in the budget legislation because they will create jobs, boost the economy, ease the labor shortage, positively impact the federal budget, and support families. It is time to set aside politics and do what's right for our economy and our families. This is morally right and economically crucial. And for me, it's personal as a formerly undocumented immigrant and currently a member of an extended mixed status family, some of whom have been living and working as contributing members of our country for more than 30 years. It is my great pleasure to introduce Bob Worsley, founder of SKYMALL and former Republican member of the Arizona State Senate and one of our co-chairs at ABIC. Bob?
Thank you, ROVIKA. I'm retired Arizona State Senator Bob Worsley. I'm a co-chair of ABIC, and I'm also the founder of SKYMALL, which I sold to Rupert Murdoch in 2001. I am and have served in a number of leadership callings in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I served for 3 terms as a Republican state senator in Arizona. I primaried and defeated the anti-immigrant Senate president who sponsored Arizona's SB 1070, the original Show Me Your Papers bill, showing that you can be pro-immigrant and win a Republican primary. Through my faith and work, I know undocumented immigrants. They are hardworking, wonderful family and faith-oriented people. I believe we need to legalize dreamers, farm workers, and essential workers for our nation and our economy to be stronger. ABIC has met with 41 Republican senators and hosted 48 town hall meetings with Republican and Democratic senators. We prefer bipartisanship, but we do not see good faith negotiations coming from the Republicans since they have concluded this may be a good political wedge issue in the 2022 midterms. Any bipartisan traction we had was lost. We thank President Biden and Senate Leader Schumer for supporting immigration reform by putting it in the budget resolution. We urge Democrats to do everything they can to legalize hardworking immigrants through reconciliation. Immigration reform is a perfect candidate for budget reconciliation. Immigration reform, as ROVIKA just mentioned, will have major implications for federal revenues, boosting the national GDP by $121 billion a year. Exactly the kind of economic and budget considerations reconciliation was designed to address. We are launching this campaign to finally get immigration reform across the finish line. Immigration is an economic prosperity for all issue. It's not a race issue. The right will soon be drowned out by the hue and cry for more workers. ROVIKA just mentioned there's 10 million jobs unfilled right now in America, and that's with many of the undocumented already in different jobs. And we need more immigrants to fill jobs and pay into the Social Security system to keep it solvent. It is inevitable that this groundswell asking for workers will grow, and it will force the white supremacists on the far right to step aside, which we hope will allow more immigration to occur, which will save our economy. Thank goodness we have hard workers who want to immigrate to America. We would like to urge Senators Kelly and Sinema in Arizona, as a Republican person, a person of faith, and a businessman, we want to ensure that common sense immigration solutions offering a path for dreamers to being legal for dreamers, TPS recipients, farm workers, and essential workers, that it be included in the reconciliation. We encourage Senator Kelly and Sinema to make sure that that happens. They will be key votes in this decision. I would now like to take the opportunity to introduce our next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bob, and thank you so much for your leadership. Our next speaker is Maria Antonieta Diaz, who is the president of the Venezuelan American Alliance, founder and CEO of Global Business Solutions. Please welcome her now.
Hi, very nice to have the opportunity to speak with you. As an owner of GBS Group, a consulting firm in the areas of business startups, accounting, and taxes, with 21 years in business, which generates 25 direct jobs, in which we support Hispanic entrepreneurs and business owners to develop their business in the US, I know firsthand the relevance and impact of immigrants as business owners and also as part of our workforce. In our company, we have 4 employees directly impacted by TPS, one from Salvador, who has 20 years with TPS, and 3 Venezuelans who recently applied for the benefit. This implies that 60% of our employees will be beneficiaries of a path to citizenship and will allow them to continue contributing to the economy and give them the peace of mind of visualizing their profession and family life in the long term. Immigrants are highly entrepreneurial, launching new companies at twice the rate of native-born Americans, and creating large numbers of jobs. All of this increases employment opportunities for native-born American workers, boost wages, and strengthens the middle class. As the US economy begins to reopen, jobs creation are a priority and will be absolutely critical to boosting recovery in communities across the country. Research shows that immigrants generally complement rather than compete with American workers because they have different skill sets and educational backgrounds. In fact, immigrants help grow the economy by filling labor needs, purchasing goods, and paying taxes. When more people work, productivity increases. And as an increasing numbers of Americans retire in coming years, immigrants will help fill labor demand and maintain the social safety nets. Immigrant workers have long been part of the foundations that build the economy of this great country. They have worked through the pandemic as healthcare workers, first responders, restaurants and grocery store workers, childcare providers, and in so many other industries to keep our country safe and our economy afloat. These workers are essential to the success of our businesses. Reconciliation is the best way now to pass immigration reform, critical to growing the GDP, spurring job creation, and raising the wages floor for all American workers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maria Antonieta, for those remarks. And thank you so much for all of the incredible work that you are doing. Our next speaker is Representative NEAL Collins, who is a Republican South Carolina State House Representative for District 5.
Hi, hello everybody. My name is Neal Collins. I represent District 5 in South Carolina. I just finished my 7th year, represent about 40,000 people, and I like to say that I represent arguably the most conservative county and arguably the most conservative state in the nation. And despite that, and I think in favor of that, we've been successful in bringing issues, especially for DACA recipients in South Carolina. Just this past year, we had a House vote of 98-5, and in South Carolina, we are a supermajority Republican House, as well as Senate, and a Republican governor. But this year, we passed a DACA recipient bill that would eliminate the obstacle of occupational licensing for our DACA recipients, 98-5 in the House, and it passed 6-0 in a Senate subcommittee. We return in January, and hopefully we'll get the ball across the finish line early next year. But I guess I don't have a national perspective. I'm focused on our state politics and how we put obstacles in front of our DACA recipients and other undocumented immigrants. And as a conservative, it doesn't make sense to me. We invest $15,000 to $16,000 a year in our K through 12 students, and in South Carolina, putting obstacles of no in-state tuition, no merit-based scholarships, and then no occupational licensing. From my vantage point as a fiscal conservative, I think it would be far better to have our population as educated as possible, and then also with a job that is as high paying as possible, so that they can pay higher taxes and have a better return on investment. So with that, I would urge that this is not that it be a bipartisan issue, but for my conservative, like-minded colleagues, that this can be a winning message for conservatives. So with that, I will turn it over.
Thank you so much, Representative Collins. And we do have one more speaker, but for media presence, please, at this moment, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A box and then they will come to me. And I will now like to introduce our last speaker, Monica Lazaro DAVADI, who's a DACA recipient and the program manager at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute in Boston. Monica?
Thank you, ROVIKA, and thank you, Representative Niels, for the great work that you're doing. My name is Monica Lazaro DAVADI, and it's a great honor to be with you here this afternoon. Today, I'm here to talk to you about the power of a pathway to citizenship. But first, I want you to imagine this nation losing $26.4 billion in income, $6.2 billion in taxes, and a wielding $20.2 billion in spending power. Because as DACA recipients, that's what we contribute to this economy. In a time of workforce shortages, we cannot afford to lose a single workforce member. Nationally, there are 542,000 dreamers that are essential workers in healthcare, restaurants, food service, agriculture, and construction. In 2019, the American Medical Association argued that the loss of DACA healthcare workers would be detrimental to our healthcare system, and this was not during a time of a pandemic. Now, let me tell you a little bit about my story. My parents made a huge sacrifice 19 years ago. They sold everything they owned and left Honduras, looking for a new home, free of violence and filled with good economic opportunities. I grew up undocumented in Miami, Florida, and I am a proud product of the Miami-Dade County public school system. Growing up, I remember feeling terrified by the idea of getting deported. DACA provided a temporary sense of relief that allowed me to move forward with a more normal life. I was able to obtain a driver's license, hold different jobs, and finish my undergraduate degree to begin my professional life. And just this last December, during the pandemic, I had the privilege of finishing my master's in health policy at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. Now, I work at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute as a program manager, where every day I look forward to making a difference in the lives of our patients. Like many dreamers, I own a car, I pay insurance, pay taxes, and aspire to be a homeowner. I aspire to become the next Secretary of Health and Human Services. I want to address healthcare disparities because I know for a fact that illnesses such as cancer cannot distinguish between citizens and undocumented immigrants. COVID-19 has taught us that if the folks that pick our food, serve our food, and clean our hospitals get sick and are afraid to seek medical care because of their immigration status, we too will get sick. From a personal experience, I know what it means for undocumented parents to fear seeking medical care. My mother was afraid of going to the emergency room because she was undocumented, and as a result, lost her life at the age of 40. Poll after poll shows that at least 69% of American voters support a pathway to legal status for Dreamers, TPS recipients, and essential workers. That is why I urge Congress to make 2021 the year that we pass common sense immigration solutions that enable DACA recipients, TPS holders, and undocumented immigrants to stop living in fear and unleash all the potential we have to offer to maximize contributions to this economy. As you move forward with legislation, think of my story, think of our stories. Thank you for your time.
Monica, thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you for those powerful words. Thank you for the work that you're doing to save lives. We will now turn to the Q&A section. And we have a couple of questions, which I will read out here, and I'll ask someone on the panel to step forward and speak to it. So our first question is, what are our options if the parliamentarian rejects the immigration provisions for the reconciliation bill? Senator Worsley, would you like to take this one?
Sure. We will not give up. The needs for these reforms are too great, and members of Congress know that. So we'll work with members on both sides of the aisle to find another vehicle for the legislation. They know that it's the right thing to do. We just need to convince them that this is also the politically right thing to do. The country will not be better off if we do not achieve immigration reform. And I would say it may take the form of a farm worker bill or a TPS bill or a DACA bill by itself, but we are going to get something done. And if all of that fails, we will work very hard to work with President Biden and make sure through executive action, he does all that he can to protect our immigrants that are here.
Thank you, Senator Worsley. And so the next question is, what are we doing now in between mid-September as part of our campaign? And I will actually answer that question. We are, to Senator Worsley's point, we will not give up. We will continue a steady drumbeat for these common sense immigration solutions. This will include events across the country with business and civic leaders and directly impacted individuals telling their stories of how their lives and livelihood depends on our political leaders doing their jobs. We'll do op-eds from leaders across the country and ensure that everyone knows that our full recovery from COVID depends on legalizations of Dreamers, TPS holders, farm workers, and essential workers. And so we just will not give up until our message is heard loud and clear. And we look forward to engaging everyone in that process and making sure that common sense immigration solutions do happen in the next few months. We do not have any more questions, so that's our last question. I want to thank everyone for sharing their stories today, for being here, and for really, really stepping forward at this moment, at this critical moment for our country. And with that, we'll conclude today's program. Thank you, everyone.